Hi there, thanks for coming by PosterCentral.com's video blog today. I'm Pete Howard, and look at this cool rarity, huh? Yeah, an advertising poster or handbill for an acid test planned for UCLA back in March of 1966. Now remember, LSD was still legal in California, so these were crazies and loonies doing their crazy thing, but there wasn't much the police could do. And this particular date, March 19th, was one of just half a dozen acid tests held in Los Angeles in early 1966, featuring, of course, the merry pranksters, the Grateful Dead playing music, poets and sights and crazy sounds and all that stuff. I've talked about the acid test a lot here leading up to this. This, though, is different than most acid test advertising pieces I've shown you in that it was obviously quite pre-planned. I mean, it's got a date, a formal venue, the UCLA Student Union Grand Ballroom. It's got a start time, a stop time, ticket price, location to get tickets even. See that cone there of information? That's right out of the, San Francisco Bill Graham Family Dog Series type design artwork there. But all that information is like the hallmark of traditional concert posters and handbills and not acid test things. Most of them just said this Saturday, and they were all very fleeting, just for a week's time or something, whereas this thing, a lot of work went into this one-off poster, that's for sure. And I'll bring it in one more time, incredibly detailed, fine point ink drawing. Look at this beauty, wow. Now interestingly, let me do it top to bottom here, look at that, all that artwork, crazy. You know what this doesn't have, though, interestingly, is it doesn't name any of those participants. As I mentioned, the Grateful Dead and pranksters like Neil Cassidy and Allen Ginsberg and so forth. So, we can speculate and think and wonder. The acid test whole scene was sort of fraying at this point. Ken Kesey, the mastermind, had fled to Mexico, and participants were probably coming and going a little more than usual, so perhaps the poster artist just felt, why name them only to have them not show up or something? If we do it this way, then we won't be wrong. And people, perhaps the acid tests were gaining their reputation already. They certainly had in Watts a month earlier, and so we don't need to actually name people. But another possibility is perhaps the creator of this item just wanted to go wild with the psychedelic artwork and not spend much of the valuable space naming all those people, because they're just letters and words. And as you can see, they really went crazy with that artwork, that's for sure. But it does say up in the up in the upper left-hand corner, as you can see up there, it does say an Intrepid Trips Inc. production. I think the INC is pretty funny, because the acid tests were about as incorporated as an ice cube or something. I mean, they weren't at all, so to put ink in there is pretty funny. And as far as actually announcing it itself, as you can see, the word "you" here is sort of a central word in the design. You might recall other acid test materials, such as the membership card, have "you" underlined distinctly, where here it's like a central word, and flowing in a couple of different directions is the phrase, the catch-all phrase, can you pass the acid test? I'm not going to go ahead and point out every single one. I will point out, though, that the word "the," there it is before this acid test, is used 3 times. So that's a little bit interesting. I don't know if it was, intentional on the artist's part, or just accidentally snuck in for a 3rd time. But then you've got the cone-shaped information block, which is very, as I said, Fillmore Avalon style. But those, they couldn't have really copied, though, because they just barely started, right? The first 2 Family Dog posters are about all that were out in that psychedelic style from the 2 main promoters down there, that being A Tribal Stomp and King Kong. And Bill Graham's first poster was only out, BG1, which of course wasn't psychedelic at all. So, I don't know, there are other influences certainly, of course, but that really sort of makes this even more original, than one would think. And then the rest of the poster, boy, that's just very Dada-esque, you might say, referring to the European avant-garde movement from 100 years ago. Just really, really something else. And it starts up at the top with a very, very old school rendition of Humpty Dumpty. Okay, so if you're an acid test historian, you know what's coming next. Now the bad news. This poster became obsolete before the event. That's right. UCLA officials, I guess, which would, be typical of university officials and their suits and everything, became uptight and nervous about this acid test happening when word got out about the notoriety surrounding the Watts acid test 5 weeks earlier. And so the event, it was knocked out of UCLA. They just said, no way, it's too controversial. And it was moved a few miles away, as you can see here, to Carthay Studios at Pico in Fairfax. And I just printed out this little map of West LA. You've got the intersection of the 405 and the 10 freeways there. And you've got UCLA there, and then the arrows pointing, as I said, a few miles away. Actually, that red dewdrop is a couple of blocks off, but that's right about where, just moved across West LA to Carthay Studios. And so in typical last-second acid test fashion, for the new location, they drew up crude handwritten handbills, and here they had a chance, to have this great looking psychedelic concert poster, small poster or handbill, but no, the UCLA officials had to go cancel it. By the way, I printed out a picture of the intended venue, the UCLA Student Union Grand Ballroom, as it looked at the time. Does that look like the location for an acid test? I would actually say yes. These acid tests, remember, came before the real heyday of the Fillmore and the Avalons, and so they were held largely in straight establishments, of course houses and things too, but that's kind of like the way things just were, and the people tripping on acid didn't necessarily look like hippies, they could look like real straights. And of course this is also a publicity photo, so I'm sure UCLA really tidied it up for this photo, but that was going to be the venue as this poster advertised, and then lo and behold, it was changed. So, but this isn't the only great looking, well, of course not. I mean, there's several great looking acid tests, but I was just going to say the next one really gives this a run for its money, and that's the one at the harmonica store poster at Troopers Hall on Pico Boulevard, with artwork by, of course, I don't need to tell you, Owsley Stanley, and I have blogged that poster too. So really fun acid test stuff, really, tough to find these things, these advertising pieces. They're just, in the woodwork, and they're tough to pull out and find, but I'll always blog one when I find the new one. So thanks a lot for coming by. Have a nice day or evening, whatever time it is, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.